Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you.
Yay. Hello, hello. How are you two today?
Well, how about yourself?
Good.
We're doing good. We're on a mission. That's all that counts. We just want to be on a mission to do all of the right things. And of course, my screen is just going to do some weird things. All right. So I normally let everybody have an opportunity to share who they are and what they do. Today, I'm going to flip it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and give some of the stats out so that we know where we are and, what's going on and why we're here. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me today. I appreciate your willingness to be here and answer questions and help other families and community members in order to support our children and our youth as they continue to grow. So I always want to always start with thank you. So thank you to all of those teachers, all of those parents, all of those community members who make it their business to take care of and help support our children, because that is the most important thing that we have. That's the most important job we have in life is our children. Our legacy is in what we pour into those young individuals that become adults that carry on our mission and our purpose. So I want to say thank you, because there's a lot of people out here doing a lot of great things to cover 50 million children per year. Okay, so as before, some of the stats that I will put out, because I know for sure today is one of those days where we will definitely be using those. So like I said, there's about 50 million children that go to school every single school year. And they are actually saying that by 2031, that number is going to drop to 49.4 million children. So nope, it's going to drop to 46.9 million children by 2031. So if we look at, so they saying that 49.4 million students in the fall of 2020 and fall of 2021, that was a total enrollment. So when I started in 2014, the number was 55 million, and we're on a steady decline. So I kind of want to tap into a little bit of what does that mean and why is that happening. I do recognize some of it's because some of the younger other generations have decided not to have so many children, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think that's the only reason why our numbers are declining. The other thing I wanted to say is 37% can't read on grade level. That is a failure. That's an adult failure. That is not a child failure. That is an adult failure all day long. So that's something we need to kind of take a look at. That equates to about 13 million children. We have 4 million teachers across the United States. 55% of them, as of 2023, say they want to quit. That's another thing we're going to talk about. So what I'll do is I'll give you, each one of you, an opportunity to share who you are and what you do. And I'll start with Ann. I'm sorry, excuse me. I don't know what happened. But all right, Dr. Ann, tell us about you, what you do, and what you're and why you're here.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Ankatona Lynn. I'm an educational consultant, coach, author, and speaker, and I help schools create safe, supportive, and successful learning environments by really helping them integrate all of their initiatives so they're breaking down silos and doing that to make sure that staff are supported and as well as administrators, and then giving teachers and other staff the skills by doing training and coaching around building resilient classrooms is really one of the big things that I've been doing a lot, and helping them to know all of the pieces. There's so many different initiatives that are going on in schools for teachers. A lot of them don't get training in college. And so really around classroom management, school mental health, behavior, a lot of those components. And so I have really tried to integrate multiple things so that in an entire year or longer, they're actually going to get small little micro learning modules of here's a key piece of instruction, like maybe it's just building relationships with students, and that I give them really specific tools to focus on that, and then giving them coaching on how they can do that and how they can engage kids in different ways. And so kind of pulling everything all together so it's not just here's another training and having them kind of have to figure it out on their own. That's kind of I think a big piece of adding stress, and just really helping the kids to make sure that that we're identifying the kids' their needs and addressing them sooner rather than later. So being more proactive rather than waiting until kids are really struggling.
As I said, you guys hold the keys to the kingdom. There's a lot of what you say and a lot of what you do in practice. You actually are helping. You actually have found there's a gap, and there's a place where you can actually help them fill that gap and actually achieve more than what they're currently doing today.
Mm-hmm.
So I do commend you, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about this for sure. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I can't get this under control. Okay, Mr. Harvey, I've been waiting for you, my friend. share with everybody.
I hope that's good.
It is 100% good. So share with everybody what you used to do and then what you're up to right now.
Well, I spent 37 years in education. During that time, I was a teacher, counselor for a number of years, vice principal, and finished up as a superintendent of a couple districts, a small district and then a larger district in Oregon. And then got silly and came up to Washington and took a really small district as superintendent principal and stayed 7 years as superintendent principal, 280 kids, K-7, which was a very interesting experience. First 3 years there, I was superintendent and principal, and then I kind of threatened to leave, and the board hired a principal and cut me back to half-time, so I stayed another 4, which was fun. But that's been a number of years ago, and I had retired and done a number of things, played with my dogs, and just played farmer for a while and did a lot of stuff. And the pandemic came along, and I took a look at what was going on with education and kids and parents and everything. And I was getting to the point that the dogs weren't as viable an option anymore. I couldn't walk fast enough. And I thought, I just feel like I need to do something. I need to dive back in and try to make some difference. And so, after the pandemic, we all recognized that a lot of parents were lost, kids were being lost, districts were struggling to try to meet the needs, teachers were leaving out of frustration. Just a lot of things going on, many of which Ann referenced it earlier. And I looked at that and I thought, where can I make the biggest difference? And I decided that my biggest skill was in dealing with parents and students and the connection with the school district. Because of my role in the past of being a counselor and an administrator, seeing it from those angles. Plus, I had a neurodiverse son myself who we successfully got through college, and my wife was a special ed teacher. So all of those things kind of lent to that background to say, I think I can make a difference. So I dove back in with the idea that I could work with parents and students who were struggling with their connection with the school, and the students were having trouble. Parents were kind of at a loss of how to deal with that. And my goal is to help parents learn how to interact with the school in a positive way so that they can support their students and be a good advocate for their students, because that's a number one job in my mind of a parent, is being a good advocate for a student. So that's the program I set up, and I'm trying to work through. I'm also open to working with districts directly if I'm asked to. I'm not going to want to travel at this point in my life, but I'm in the Washington area, and I would be willing to work directly with districts to try to help the parent-student district connection, because I think there's a lot of gold to be mined in that area to help students be successful for the future. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I like it. And I'm so excited to talk to you, because I know that because you've had history and understanding, maybe you can actually shine a little light on some of the questions that I've posed over the last so many weeks, right? That was one of the reasons why I thought was a really good conversation to have with you today, and with Dr. Ann too, because there's a lot of things you said about how families can communicate and engage with the school. And so I know that that's really important. And so I'm excited to be able to talk to you about that today. I do not like this version. Every time I try it, it just drives me nuts. Okay, so what I will say, so I'm so excited. So one of the things that I really like doing here is that we have a problem per se, challenge, hurdle, something that we're looking to overcome, and then we provide a solution. So people don't walk away from us after the hour and say, well, that was just 100% complaint about all the things that we're doing wrong, and never anything about what we're doing right. These are the things I know you're doing right as teachers and administrators. One, you're showing up every day. Showing up every day. You're attempting to train, teach, learn, corral, hug, hurdle, all these things with these students, right? You're trying to forge relationships, build consistency, feed them, clothe them in some cases. You guys are doing so much for us, for our children, right? That makes you parent number two. My analogy throughout this whole entire program has been the same. Parent number one is home. Parent number two is school. Your bonus parent is normally the community. When children have a great co-parenting relationship between all of the participants in their community, it leaves a child in a better situation to continue to build their life that we see for them. But when we are not able to co-parent with the school, that is where a lot of the breakdown comes into play. So I will ask the first question. What is it that parents need to know and understand in order to be able to engage with successfully, you hear that word, successfully engage with the school about their child for the improvement of their desired outcome? So what do they need to know, and how can they successfully communicate with the schools about their children? Go.
Who wants to go first?
Who do you want to go? Okay. I can go first, I guess. So that's, I think, so just to kind of, I didn't give all the details of my background, but I'm a special education teacher, and I've taught emotional support and autistic support. And I also am a behavior analyst. I'm board certified behavior analyst. And I'm also a person with my own lived experience. So growing up, I had post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was never even identified until much later, as well as ADHD and anxiety. And so I also have my own neurodiverse background, and I'm also a family member. So I kind of have a variety of perspectives, because I've been a teacher, and I'm also a family member, and I do a lot of advocacy in the community as well. And so I think one of the big things that I, for parents, especially that has come out of COVID, that there's a lot of perception that it's us versus them, and that I think that the language that is going on in society in general has really pit a lot of people against each other, and teachers especially were really hit hard during COVID in that they were, and even coming out of COVID, probably more so. There's just been a lot of political pressure that I've seen from school boards and from administrators. Like, there are just lots of things that are added demands to schools, that and they're not really always given the tools to be able to kind of manage all of those things. Their job is really to teach kids, and so many things have been piled on them that they didn't learn in college, that that's not in their, may not necessarily be in their job description, yet they are really kind of trying to do a lot of things and required to do a lot of things that they may have not had to do previously, and they don't always have the tools to be able to do it. I think that's an important thing, and that they really do care about the kids, number one, and I think for parents to understand that when teachers are communicating with them, or building administrators, whoever they are, their intention, we can't make the assumption that they just want to damage our children. If we have that kind of assumption about them, then we're likely going to see that happen. It's, so as if we look and we kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, and really it's important for both sides, both teachers and parents, to kind of, we have to put our assumptions aside and say, all right, I'm going to listen to this person. And so a lot of times as a parent, if we have our own history of difficulties with schools, we may be going in there already kind of ready to explode. So we can only control our own behavior. So I always, whenever I'm working with any family member or even teachers, really with everybody that I work with, I had to learn this myself. I had to really learn how to manage my own emotions going into difficult situations. And so something as easy as literally just taking a deep breath, or having something to fidget. I know I twirl my hair, and we say that this is something that we do for kids, but I also, as an adult, I tend to take notes. I'll write down lots of notes, and that is kind of a fidget for me, and it actually helps me to listen a little bit better sometimes. And so it's important for us to have like a toolbox of things when we're feeling really stressed. What can we do for ourselves, and who can we also bring it in with us, as as a parent going into a school. If we're going in by ourselves, that can be very overwhelming. And even though, again, teachers absolutely have the best intention for wanting to support your children, they may not realize that having multiple people in a meeting, and you may be the only one, can be extremely overwhelming. So I think that, first, what can you do to manage your own emotions going into it, and recognize that what's best for your child is number one. And the way that you can do that is by having kind of a calm environment. And so when teachers feel that you're not going to immediately be attacking them, then they're more likely to also listen to you. So it's about really being present, and whatever you need to do to help yourself be present without kind of getting ready, to explode. It's just, let's sit and listen and take a deep breath, because sometimes we don't always listen to each other, especially with social media. We tend to focus on, reacting. And so it's really important for us that no matter what the situation, like I said, we can only control our own behavior. So as both teachers and parents, that if they can do something to kind of calm themselves before they even go into the meeting, or just have any kind of engagement with a school, I think it's really important and could go a long way.
Well, everything Ann said is absolutely accurate, and I would echo all of that. And in dealing with parents and helping them to approach a school, um, the first thing that I say to them is, don't let an issue fester. Don't let an issue sit there on the back burner, be angry about it, build up a head of steam, and then head to school to straighten those folks out. It isn't going to work. I've been on I've been on that end of it, and I'll tell you that your automatic defense system kicks in the minute you are attacked. That's human nature. So don't go in on the attack. Make sure that you understand exactly what happened, because let's say it's an issue that is a discipline issue. Let's just take that as an example. Make sure you really understand what happened. And get some information maybe from some other parents whose children saw what happened. There's a way that parent networks have of gathering information to find out what did happen today at school. So gather some information. I used to send home a note to parents when I was a principal at the first of every school year with my first newsletter that said, I promise, if you don't believe everything that your child says about what happened at school, I won't believe everything about what your child says happened at home. Children have their own perspective on things. It doesn't mean that they lie necessarily, but they see things very different than adults. So make sure that you kind of have a story of what went on before you go in. Go in with the attitude you're there to solve a problem, whether it's an academic problem, whether it's a discipline problem, whatever the problem is. Go with the attitude that you're there to solve the problem, and that you're going to partner with the school to solve the problem. The words to use many times are, how can we help each other help Johnny?
Right.
And sometimes those words break down huge barriers. The school says, oh, they don't want to attack me, they want to help me. That's
Today.
perspective. They're here to, because believe me, teachers get attacked a lot. And that if you're not satisfied, if you don't get the answer that you think you need, or don't get the clarification you think you need, make sure you're willing to take the next step, but find out what the next step is. Don't go in armed for bear and see the principal when you really need to start with the teacher and talk to the teacher and get their perspective. That doesn't mean you can't carry it forward. Every district has a policy about how you file a grievance or follow a procedure, and use that procedure, because one of the hardest things as a principal was to say, have you talked to the teacher about it?
Yeah.
And the parent says, no.
Right.
Well, maybe you should start there and reserve me for if we really need to solve a problem, rather than jumping right to me. So those are some things that I think really help. Every district or every community has advocacy groups. If you need an advocate, you don't want to go in alone, don't just take anybody. Take either somebody that you trust that can stay calm and keep you calm, or go to one of the advocacy groups and get somebody from an advocacy group to go with you, to talk with you about it. If it's an IEP, particularly if it's an IEP, do that so that you have somebody there that's knowledgeable and understands what is contained in an IEP and how it should be administered. So those are some things that I tell from parents. From the school standpoint, I say similar stuff. Don't assume that parent's coming to attack you. Assume the best and stay calm and deal with the parent. Ask questions, find out where the parent's coming from. Don't jump to conclusions about where the parent might be coming from, because your conclusions may be entirely wrong. And you run into some bizarre situations. That's absolutely true. In 37 years, I was asked by a special ed parent to take their son fishing as part of their IEP. And I said, I can't take responsibility for taking your son fishing as part of IEP. They knew I fished. They wanted their son to learn to fish. I appreciated that, but I'm not taking your son down to the river and taking the risk.
The risk of pushing them in.
You have to be able to frame the answer in a way that the parent understands. This parent didn't want to understand, so they didn't understand. But at any rate, stay calm on the school end too, and reasonable with the parent. So those are practical things.
Those are really good practical things, right? And the reason why I say that, and I'm going to emphasize that, is that for me, when I was doing this, and I'm an advocate, so I show up in rooms where normally people would not expect to see me, but I show up anyway. And the reason why is because I can calm the room. I can calm the people who brought me there, but then I can actually have a different point of view. So one of the things I do for sure, and I really hate when parents do this. Never my child, not my little Johnny, not my little Mary. Yes, your little Johnny. Yes, your little Mary. Daggone it. Here's what I will say. Parents, out of sight, out of mind is not just a saying, right? What they're saying is that since I've started keeping your kids safe, I have had the great privilege of being able to meet and speak with various parents, principals, teachers, all the people that are in the school. But I've also been able to witness the foolishness that happens. And that is what parents don't know. When the pandemic happened, I will go down in flames on this one. That was an opportunity for all the parents to realize that what was happening in the classroom. And some parents took it as, they're not teaching my kid, and they just began that blame game and the wagging of the finger, right? But then the other ones said, wait, this is all you guys are being taught? Let me help you get some of that other stuff taken care of. And then other people are just like, we need to send these kids back. We just can't deal with that, right? So there's all these groups of people. And if it was me with my kids being that young, here's a book. Let's do this. You're only on a computer for an hour. That means we got 5 hours to make sure we fill in the gap. And I think that's what we're missing. Parent number 2 is barely holding on, because I have written down here, money is always a problem for schools. I'm gonna make sure I'm big on this one. That is not true. Money is not the reason why people don't want to do anything in schools. Money is the excuse you use. The reason why, so Harvey, please let me know, correct me where I'm wrong. They say 55% of 4 million teachers, that is over 2 million teachers, want to quit in 2023. It's not money. Everybody wants to ring the bell and say, give me more money and I'll be okay. That's not what's happening. A number of responsibilities and then the number and the pay do not match. It just doesn't. Nobody's going to work. Nobody believes in working for free unless you're feeding me for the rest of my life. So money's not the reason why. But when you have angry parents and angry teachers and angry administrators all teaching through angry goggles, what is the child receiving on the other side of that? right? So what would you say to those teachers who want to quit and walk away from a profession that they really were really wanting to do, but they just don't? They're like, they're asking me for so much, which is taking away my life and not providing me with a way that will help balance out all of the effort. So, Harvey, what do you say to those teachers?
Well, what I have to say is more to the administrators than the teachers. So let me say it to the administrators. Teachers stay where they feel supported.
There we go. There for the people in the back.
It's an administrator's job to build a team, to honor teachers, to support teachers, to keep teachers focused on their goals, to help them when they are emotionally drained, and to build, for want of a better term, a family. And unfortunately, what I see happening is administrators, not to their fault, I'm not blaming them, are under the same stress that everybody else is under. And it just too often isn't happening. But if you look at the pockets of schools where teachers aren't leaving, and if you look at the pocket of schools where parents are happy, I will guarantee you, you're going to find positive administration in those places that are supporting teachers and helping parents to meet their goals for their students. That is a critical issue. And we're not paying enough attention to that part of the issue, in my opinion, because we're focusing on teachers. What can we do for teachers? Yes, we need to do it for teachers, but we need to build the environment for teachers to do it. We build an environment for students to learn in that's positive, right? We all know that's what we need to do. We need to do the same thing for teachers. We need to build an environment that's positive for them to work in. And it's just not happening enough. And there's nobody to put the blame at their feet. It's a societal thing. It's what's going on. But somehow we need to break that cycle. We need to get through to administrators that they're there for more than ensuring that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, that they're there to build a team that's positive, that serves students. And that's a critical issue.
You said something very powerful right there. Serving the students. Our the number one goal is to support those who cannot pay us. Okay? I say children have the best job on the planet. They can curse you out, they can pee on you, they can scream at you, they can fight you, they can do all the things, but guess what? You still have to feed them, you still have to clothe them, you still have to put a roof over their head, and then you have to turn around and educate them. So, they have no money. They have no money. They are at our mercy. So if we're having a bad day, we have the ability to kick them, push them to the side, and go and take care of our own personal business, right? And they still don't have any money. They have to rely on us. So we have to do better about what we're doing in order to do that. I like what Kathy says here, because she mentions the fact that her parents didn't curse at her, but look, my parents didn't curse at me either, Kathy. But she said, but one of the things is we didn't want to go home. Please don't tell me you're calling my mom. Now, when I was younger, I was like, please don't call her. That lady is just wild. You know, I'm going to get in trouble when I get home. I don't want to get in that trouble. And right now, you'll notice that we don't have a lot of that. We don't have the natural instinct to be fearful or afraid of disappointing the adult in our life doesn't exist so much anymore. So that's part of it. And then Therese says support is essential. I believe that that's one of the reasons why. That's why I put it in a way that people understand it, because there's a lot of blended families and things like that. So we're all coming around with bonus parents. So if the bonus parent is your community, that means your co-parenting relationship has to improve with the school. And if the school is not given a desired outcome, we really do need to make a point to say they believe the same thing. I'm just saying, they were commenting right there, Dr. Ann. But they're that we need to move our children or go to a different place or demand a change in the board or in the people that are leading, because that's where a lot of the failure is. The failure is not on the child. The failure is on the adults. School is education. It is not a business. Stop running it like a business. That is where the failure is coming into play, because when you look at it and you say, when I wake up in the morning, I look at my kids and I say, okay, I have to teach them their ABCs, or I have to teach them financial literacy, or I have to teach them world history, right? If I'm having a bad day, there's an opportunity for me not to do that, right? But from an educational standpoint, they need those things in order to be successful in their lives. That's not a business. That's their right to be educated so that they can have a successful life. And that starts with me. Right. So I was looking at that. All right. So I learned today, I think I already knew it, that the schools buy curriculum. If the curriculum is not working for the students the way the parents see, the way the parents are expecting, what can we do to actually have that potentially changed or measured for how impactful it is on the school? Does that make sense?
So about we're talking regarding the curriculum. If the
Yes.
curriculum isn't having the impact on the students, and what was the question again about in terms of what can the parents do?
Yeah. So what do we need to do? Because here's the thing. I've told my children, and I do not pull no bones about that. I need to write my congressman for my refund on your education. How dare you? Why would you say that? Because you don't know things that I know you were supposed to learn while you were in school. And my tax dollars pay for their salary for you to come out into the rest of the world and not have the necessary skills to move forward. That is twofold. One, teaching the metrics and everything that they do, and two, the curriculum that they're following. So what do we do as parents when we notice that the outcome for the child is not what we expect it to be?
So that's kind of a definitely multifaceted question. And in some ways, this actually goes back to, I think let me go back to actually even what Harvey was talking about, because it's connected. So in terms of leadership support, 100%, if teachers do not have the tools to be able to implement the curriculum effectively and with fidelity, then that's going to be a challenge, because they're not going to see the impacts. If they're not delivering the curriculum the way they're supposed to, then that's going to be a challenge. And so that does come from leadership. In addition to that, it's something as even as simple, not as simple as the school calendar. And so the school board is often what they dictate what the school calendar looks like. And if teachers don't have enough time to plan for their lessons as well as to plan with each other, they're not going to be able to implement the curriculum, because if we know that they have an evidence-based curriculum that is based on, let's say for reading, the science of reading, and that when we know that that's, so I think for parents to do the research, or at least look at what are the curriculum that they're using, and just being aware of it at the basic level. I wouldn't say to a parent, go ahead and do a ton of research on it. I think it's just asking, are they, kind of looking at those bigger pictures. It's not just the teacher delivering the curriculum. It's, do they have the support to deliver the curriculum, and kind of are the priorities staff development. So for the district, how can we make sure that staff are able to do their job? So again, it kind of comes back to that support piece. And I think for parents to say, what can we do at home to support our child? Now, again, it's ideally, if we're talking again, just kids who are struggling in reading, maybe we're not seeing those outcomes, because we have such a spectrum of parents that, yes, there may be parents who have kids that are on the gifted range, and then we have kids that are on that other end of the spectrum. So even what advice that I would give to the parents would be slightly different based on where they are on that spectrum, because I couldn't say to a parent who is a single parent who's working as many hours as they can to try and function, to try and do more with their child at home related to school. I wouldn't absolutely put that on them. I want to make sure that they're focused on relationships with their children, because that's got to be, even just sitting and reading a book together, that alone, we don't need to be enriching everything when we really need to just be focusing on having a conversation with our kids around what they're learning and what they're struggling, and getting to know that, because then that information that we may get from the kids at home could then be helpful for the teacher as well. And for those parents who want to do more kind of enriching what a child is learning, they can add those things on. But my advice would definitely be different based on where the parent was, and making sure that kind of that district can support the teachers in being able to deliver the curriculum. One more key piece that I kind of want to point out is that a curriculum is a tiny piece of education, and that we have to recognize, and I think this came up really with COVID, and that reading and math and science are one piece of learning, and that the skills to survive, the skills to communicate, the skills to develop and keep relationships and set goals and learn how to collaborate with other kids are, helping kids to be able to regulate their own emotions. If kids are so stressed coming into the classroom, they're not going to be able to learn. And that we need to be able to look at kids holistically. And I think that, again, if we funnel too much on a curriculum, yes, a curriculum is absolutely important, and we want to make sure that teachers have all the tools and the support from the administrator and also the school board to be able to implement that as effectively as possible. It's also, how can we make sure we're looking at kids holistically, and that we really are teaching the whole child, and they're not just learning reading, they're learning all those other aspects. So I think that this is kind of where the partnership, it has to be a partnership, in that how can we make sure that we're helping kids, and looking at what other community agencies. There are lots of things that, like United Way do, other parent groups that can offer, kind of skills and some support that can further expand your child's skills, maybe related to the curriculum. I think that for us to look at how can we all work together, how can the community, maybe there's a tutoring program in the community, maybe there's a STEAM program in the community. How can we all work together to really educate our kids? Obviously making sure, yes, there are evidence-based curriculum, but what are some other things that we could do to make sure that kids are able to learn, so that they're coming to school with enough sleep, that they're coming to school, that they've eaten, and if parents can't help to do that, then we need to not shame them and give them the tools so that their kids can learn. Because if, again, they're not eating, if they're not sleeping, if any of those things are happening, it's going to be difficult to implement the curriculum. So there are kind of a variety of factors that are going on, that I wouldn't say, I don't want to say that a parent is 100%. They're not. We have to make sure that the community is able to support the parents to then be able to to kind of level the playing field so all kids are able to come to school and fed and have had enough sleep.
Thank you, because you just reinforced the fact that parent one is home, parent two is school, and the community is the bonus. And we cannot do this. One group cannot do it alone. So school can't do it by themselves. Home can't do it by themselves. And because everybody has 2 and 3 jobs to try to make sure that there's milk and bread in the house, then that means you have to rely at some given point on the community. And that community is a community that you choose, not one that you live in. So, I mean, where I grew up and where my mom sent us for support were 2 totally different areas, but it was still a place where there needed to be support. And so I'm very grateful that you were able to answer that question, because I think a lot of times we want to run and just fight everybody, but we don't need to fight everybody. I used to say I used to go to school and say, what can I do to help this along? I have an ASD kid, and I was like, what can I do? What do I need to do to support this? What is my role in all of this? And it wasn't to say that I didn't know enough or I wasn't capable enough. It was to say, we're in this together, and his success is my success and your success. It's not all on me, because there were days in which, they would catch me in a parking lot crying and falling apart because this kid is just doing some things, so we have to be able to do this together. So Harvey, what's your take?
Well, I'm probably going to ruffle a few feathers, but
Go ahead, do it.
I was never a great curriculum wonk. I'll tell you why I wasn't, or in my mind I wasn't. Curriculum is the very basement of what we do. It is the foundation of what we do. It is not the be all and end all of what we do. I used to say to my teachers on more than one occasion, probably enough to make them angry, you don't teach curriculum, you teach kids. You present curriculum in a manner that kids can learn it. Now, that requires creativity. It requires you to look behind, I'll call it the mask, because I picked up that middle nap of each student that comes to you, and say, what does this child need in order to learn this curriculum? Now, I'm not saying you can teach 30 different ways in a classroom, but you can certainly offer a venue that offers ability for all those students to learn, discussion, group work, on and on and on and on. Integration of curriculum, I think, is something we keep missing. History is not just history. History is geography. History is a lot of things. I saw I saw a TV program the other day that just sparked me, because they were saying we need to teach kids how to grow their own vegetables. And they had set up a vegetable garden, and kids were growing vegetables. And they were all focused on growing vegetables. And I thought, what a great opportunity to integrate biology. What a great opportunity to integrate nutrition. What a great I mean, it's endless. You can integrate all sorts of subject matter. The nastiest statements I've ever heard from teachers is when they say, I taught it, they didn't learn it. Well, baloney.
Yeah, agreed.
Wait, let me sit you in that chair and teach it the way you taught it, and let's see if you catch on. See, right. So I think that's the other thing about that. But go ahead.
That's my point. Or even worse is, I covered that curriculum. Mm-hmm. What, with a sheet?
It's dead.
They did it once.
That's not teaching. Teaching's creativity. Teaching's artistic. Teaching's putting ideas into students' head. I wrote a little paper the other day just because I got sparked about it, about imagination. We do all sorts of things to quell kids' imaginations. How many report cards come home and says, Johnny has a really active imagination? Well, great.
Yeah.
All of human progress has been because of imagination. Imagination channeled is creativity. Imagination channeled is invention. Without imagination. So use it, don't criticize it. And how many parents, I'd say this to parents too, how many parents say to their kids, oh, stop making that stuff up.
Yeah.
Get in the real world. Well, kids create a world in their own head. Our job as adults is to help them create a positive world so that they can become positive adults. And too often we don't do that. We quash the very things that we should be doing. And a lot of times we quash it by hiding behind the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I love, Harvey, that you said integration. 100%. It's like with social emotional learning curriculum, it's rather than all of these silos, let's look at how we can do it, and make it all work together. Collaborative activities helps with fostering that social emotional learning skills, those skills for kids to be ready to work, in a job. So yeah, I love that. That's one of the big things. And that's breaking down the silos, because again, we have silos of even curricula. It's like, how can we integrate things a little bit more effectively? And that's where I think planning time comes in for teachers, because that's
Absolutely. And collaboration between teachers.
Uh-huh.
Ways to collaborate between teachers. Communication systems that allow for collaboration, encouragement of collaboration by administrators. All of those things will go into the positive environment that needs to be created for kids in the classroom. And parents are part of that. Parents can certainly add that to it. So there needs to be a connection between the school and the parents where both are on the same page and both are creating an environment where kids can learn. And if the parent isn't doing it, that doesn't mean that the school can escape doing it.
But that's where the biases come into play here, because I actually had a conversation with an AP about this specifically, because I found it very interesting that when children who cannot afford certain things or they're having a harder time at home for various reasons, what they do is that through bias, they say, okay, we know you don't have that, so it's okay, you can take a nap. But the expectation, and I wrote this today in my post. So there's a couple of things. I wrote this today in my post because, a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, I wrote, if your child can't read, struggling to read, and you don't have time, find somebody who does. If your child can't do math and you don't have the time, find somebody who does. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility as parent one to figure out where the gap is and fill it. If the school can't do it, you have to find somebody who does, because at the end of the day, it is still your fault. I am 100% at fault when my child does not receive what they need in order to be successful in their adult life. But what I said in the post today is just very interesting, because the children not being able to read puts them more in line with being an inmate in these privatized jails, in these jail systems, period. And it is our collective responsibility to figure out how to not have that child get to that point. It used to be, Chris Rock used to say, my whole entire job is to keep my girls off of the pole. Well, at this point, all of our jobs is to keep our kids out of the justice system. They are like choking on all of the amount of students that are coming in. And if you look at it, out of 100 children, if the numbers are telling you 40 of the 100 can't read, potentially putting 20 at risk of being in jail by the age of 24. is that really where we want our legacy to land and what we want it to do? Because I'm confused at why that seems to be an acceptable thing to do. So as we go to wrap up, one of the things I wanted to ask for sure, let's see if we can, I don't know if we can answer, because you actually answered a lot of questions. One, we need to work it upwards. We need to work the command structure. When you have a problem with the teacher, you step to the teacher in a respectful way and you have an open conversation with them. You say, hey, I don't like what's happening. I see this on my side. Do you see this on your side? How do we resolve that? And begin to build a bridge at the teacher level. In the event that we're not getting the response that we need or feel is acceptable for our child to be successful in that school year, you will then go ahead up to the AP and maybe principal. If you're not getting an answer at the school level, you are going to go ahead and go into the superintendent's office. I know this method works. I have had to use it more than once, and I was able to have success on the other side of that one. The other thing I'll point out is that there are two sides to every coin, doggone it. Your experience and their experience. So my experience may not have been a favorable one, but I have no clue what the other side of that coin looks like. So we have to be mindful and be respectful of the fact that my experience is my experience, but the other side of the coin is it can either be a mirror image of my experience, or it can be a totally different experience that actually provides me with the experience that I received. So we just have to remember those children, they see a lot of things and they feel a lot of things, and they're making decisions based off of that. But what do you say to people like myself who are working, who all I want to do is help, but I have been met with so much anger, hostility, frustration, disbelief, and lack of acknowledgement that the problem truly exists, that I cannot seem to find a way into a school who wants me to help them with a problem or a challenge that they know they have, but they're not willing to admit outwardly. So what do you say to people like me in order to be able to continue to help these students? Because this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. It's because there's too many of us trying to help a system who doesn't even acknowledge that they are bleeding to death.
I just kind of want to start off with, I think, because school districts and buildings are, yes, the really bleeding, that we really have to make sure we're stopping the bleed. So that's kind of my big focus is I want to make sure that I'm breaking down silos so building and district administrators are not stressed or not super stressed as they've been, and that they're then able to support the teachers. And then I try to focus on giving the teachers the most immediate, quick strategies. It's not a quick fix, but it's, let me give you some things that you're going to be able to see a change immediately so that you can feel a little bit more empowered. It's kind of breaking down those barriers, because if they're bleeding, they're not going to be able to hear anything from the outside. I work with a lot of mental health providers and other county organizations who are trying to get into schools. And I say, we have to not say, oh, we've got the best program that we're coming into the school. It's, let's look at what are the biggest challenges that they're having and come alongside them, so that then they're going to be open to more people coming in. That's kind of one of the challenges. They're just so overwhelmed. And so I try to kind of let's integrate things so that you're not so overwhelmed, and let's focus on one specific thing that we want to change and help them to do that. And then I think with community agencies, it's, again, we have to recognize that schools are so stressed. And so we have to figure out how are we going to make their jobs easier and have better outcomes. And those two are not mutually exclusive. We actually can work much more effectively and efficiently to see better outcomes and have less stress with for teachers and for administrators. So I think that break down silos, stop the bleed, and focus on developing relationships between all the partners. Because again, if you don't have a relationship, if the school doesn't have a relationship with the families or community partners, then that's going to make it difficult. So let's do something like a breaking bread, like just like an event that can bring those people together. So they're not talking about work, they're talking about just, relationships, and foster those relationships in a way that are going to help them to see like, oh, they're not so bad people. It's, again, we have to break down those silos between us and them.
Okay.
Well, I'll give you a short answer. As an individual wanting to work into the school district so that you can help, the first thing you need to do, I think, is look for what I would call a soft point.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere where they really need some help. It might be the cafeteria. Who knows? But the foot in the door is very important, because then people get to know you. They get to see she's not here to attack us. She's here to help us. And it becomes extremely important that you're on the inside rather than on the outside. So you find a way to get on the inside. Then you're one of the in crowd, so to speak.
Yep, agree.
It's a lot of schools, Harvey. I got to go be the lunch lady at a lot of schools.
Second of all, I would say there's power in numbers. Well, oftentimes we overlook the power of a positive PTA, for instance. The PTA that I had in this last small school is an example. Small, tight organization, very tight-knit school, worked hard together. A school of 280 kids, the parents raised $20,000 every year at an auction. You'd think those teachers didn't sit up and take notice what was going on with those positive parents? They absolutely did. So there's power in numbers, and there's power in doing positive things that help schools. And those are some things that get you on the inside rather than standing on the outside.
Okay, so I'm going to take those pointers and I'm going to share this one thing with you. I receive everything you're saying, and I'm going to try that. I'm not going to be nobody's lunch lady, though. I'm just can't be that. But I'm going to do those things. But I will share with you that I actually partner with a group who actually helps to give money to the schools and being able to support their community. I tell them, I know that these people can give you this large enough amount of money that will make you happy. You'll be fine. I was met with no thank you. I'm telling you that my experience with these people are not favorable. And what it's leading me to believe is, honestly, it's time for a changing of the guards. We no longer, what is happening at the leadership level for schools needs to be changed. It is no longer effective, and it is hurting us more than it is helping us. And although I commend all of the teachers and administrators, bus drivers, crossing guards, paraprofessionals, nurses, all of them who are supporting, that's the janitorial services, that's the lunch ladies, that's all of them. I support every single one of them, and I believe that what they're doing is amazing, and I appreciate everything that they do. Leadership needs to change, because right now leadership is blocking a lot of people. When you find out that there were things that were brought to the district that could save those 19 kids in Uvalde or Sandy Hook or down in Florida or even Santa Fe in Texas, when you see that there are so many people out here working so hard and giving up days, nights, and weekends just to help a school, and we're met with, you have to be my friend first, or you have to buy me donuts, or we have to meet on the golf course, or maybe it's not a good time. And then I say, with all of that, I'll give you the money, and all you have to do is pay me out of the hundreds of thousands of dollars I give you. You don't even have to pay me $100,000 of that, and you can keep it, and you still met with, no, this is not what we want. We don't want to do the focus. Leadership has to change. That's kind of how I feel about this entire thing. I'm glad we had this conversation today, because it's opened my eyes to other things. But I'm just saying.
I wonder if some of what you're saying is endemic to certain parts of the country. Now, I'm not saying that's true, because I haven't been in other parts of the country. I'm in the Northwest. I'm not seeing that kind of resistance that you're saying here in the Northwest, in Oregon, Washington, which is states that I'm familiar with. I'm seeing a lot more collaboration and a lot more working with than I am the resistance. So I don't know. I can't say that's true, false, or indifferent, but I think there may be differences in different part of the country.
6 states. I have tried and went through after 6 different states. All of them have the same behavior. Now, I can tell you there's a couple other reasons why those behaviors exist for me, but we're going to put a pin in that one, right? But I will tell you that a lot of, I'm not the only one that is having this challenge. And even a couple of people who were inside the gates and have left to come back in to help the school are actually being met with the same bad behavior. So again, it comes down to leadership. And remember, the people that we're here to serve don't have a dime to their name. And that the customer, because people, when you're doing your branding stuff, they're like, who's your target? Who's going to pay? Who gets the most benefit? For our program, the child and then the family gets the most benefit. The family is paying the ticket, but the school is making the determination on what they're willing to pay for. And that is a tragedy because they're making it about them and not about the children. And that is where our failure begins. So I do appreciate all your time today. Thank you, everybody, for spending the time with us. I know we went over a little bit. So I want to thank Shay and Edward and Therese and Kathy and everybody else who's listening who didn't chime in. Thank you very much for spending your time with us today. And until next time, remember, words are power. Please use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest, like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.